Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Surabhyaya Namaha.
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 Mukam karoti vachalam pangam langayate girim yat kripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataram. Yat kripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataram. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Today being Saturday, we are Hare Krishna. We are reading from Sri Chaitanya Caritamrita. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki
Jai.
Hare Krishna. Adi Lila, chapter number 1. Yes. Last reading was in connection with in the purport, Srila Prabhupada was referring to Srila Jiva Goswami's Bhakti Sandarbha, and we went over the various Sandarbhas written by Srila Jiva Goswami. So we continue the verses here, text number 36. Sri Rup Sanatan Bhakta Raghunat Sri Jiva Gopal Bhakta Das Raghunat. The instructing spiritual masters are Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatan Goswami, Sri Bhakta Raghunath, Sri Jiva Goswami, Sri Gopala Bhatt Goswami, and Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. Text 37. Echae Guru, Shiksha Guru, Je Amar, Tan Sabar Pada Padme, Koti Namaskar. These 6 are my instructing spiritual masters, and therefore I offer millions of respectful obeisances unto their lotus feet. Short purport by Srila Prabhupada. By accepting the 6 Goswamis as his instructing spiritual masters, the author specifically makes it clear that one should not be recognized as a Gaudiya Vaishnava if he is not obedient to them, to the 6 Goswamis. Text 38. Bhagavanera Bhakta Yata Srivasa Pradhana Tanna Sabhara Pada Padme Sahasra Pranam. There are innumerable devotees of the Lord, of whom Srivas Thakur is the foremost, I offer my respectful obeisances thousands of times unto their lotus feet. Text 39. Advaita Acharya Prabhura Amsa Avatar Tandra Pada Padme Koti Pranati Amar. Advaita Acharya is the Lord's partial incarnation, and therefore I offer my obeisances millions of times at his lotus feet. Text 40. Nityanandarai Prabhura Swarupa Prakash Tandra Pada Padma Bandhu Jahara Munidas. Sri Nityanandaram is the plenary manifestation of the Lord, and I have been initiated by him. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto his lotus feet. Text 41. Gadadhara Panditavi Prabhura Nija Shakti Tan Sabara Charane Mora Sahasra Pranati. Translation. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the internal potencies of the Lord, of whom Sri Gadadhar Pandit is the foremost. Text 42. Sri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Swayam Bhagavan Tanhara Padaravinde Ananta Pranam. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the personality of Godhead himself, and therefore I offer innumerable prostrations at his lotus feet. Text 43. Savarane Prabhure Kuriya Namaskar E Chaitanyo Yache Kariye Bichara. Having offered obeisances unto the Lord and all his associates, I shall now try to explain these 6 diversities in one. Purport. There are many unalloyed devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all of whom are considered associates surrounding the Lord. Krishna should be worshipped with his devotees. The diverse principles are therefore the eternal paraphernalia through which the absolute truth can be approached. Text 44. Yadyapi amara guru Chaitanya Radasa Tathapi janiye ami tanhara prakash. Although I know that my spiritual master is a servitor of Sri Chaitanya, I know him also as a plenary manifestation of the Lord. Purport. Every living entity is essentially a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the spiritual master is also his servant. Still, the spiritual master is a direct manifestation of the Lord. With this conviction, a disciple can advance in Krishna consciousness. The spiritual master is none different from Krishna because he is a manifestation of Krishna. Lord Nityananda, who is Balaram himself, the first direct manifestation or expansion of Krishna, is the original spiritual master. He helps Lord Krishna in his pastimes, and he is a servant of the Lord. Every living entity is eternally a servant of Sri Caitanya, of Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Therefore, the spiritual master cannot be other than a servant of Lord Chaitanya. The spiritual master's eternal occupation is to expand the service of the Lord by training disciples in a service attitude. A spiritual master never poses as the Supreme Lord himself. He is considered a representative of the Lord. The revealed scriptures prohibit one's pretending to be God. But a bona fide spiritual master is a most faithful and confidential servant of the Lord, and therefore deserves as much respect as Krishna. So we get a little glimpse in these prayers offered by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, the importance of both the Shiksha Guru and Diksha Guru. There are innumerable, as being described here, unlimited Shiksha Gurus, and actually also unlimited Diksha Gurus, although in one's life one accepts one Diksha Guru, as we know. So the importance of the spiritual master is being stressed here, and what is most important is that the personality was considered as Adi Guru, Lord Balaram, and of course Nityananda Prabhu is himself Balaram. And the special feature or special characteristic of the spiritual master, going back to the original spiritual master, is that he is first and foremost a servant. And that is the foundational principle of Bhakti, foundational principle of devotional service. This mood or attitude of seva. Therefore, in the Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada describes the spiritual master as the supreme personality of servitor Godhead. Very nice explanation. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, and his foremost representative, the spiritual master, is also the supreme personality of servitor Godhead. Means he is meant to exemplify. He is meant to exemplify by his mind, by his mentality, by his words, and by his activities, that he is first and foremost in that mood of being a servant. This is our disease in the material world. We are in the mood of being a master. We want others to serve us. So all of the great personalities have especially demonstrated, beginning with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. We were discussing the other day how when the devotees of Bengal would be traveling to Jagannath Puri every year to spend the Rath Yatra festival. It's like this time, they're about to arrive in Jagannath Puri. Snan Yatra. I don't know how many days they would arrive before Rath Yatra. Lord Chaitanya would be waiting for them and the other devotees who were living in Jagannath Puri with Lord Chaitanya. And it is very nicely described how Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is himself the Supreme Personality of Godhead, non-different from Krishna, he would personally receive these devotees knowing how much of hardship they have taken. No Jagannath Puri Express. They had to walk. Very dangerous also. So he very much appreciated their devotion. And he would personally meet them, greet them, receive them, garland them, put chandan on their forehead. So, actually all of us, ultimately there is only one Adi Purusha, Govindam, Adi Purusham, Krishna, and everyone else, including the various incarnations, just like Lord Balaram, are meant to actually serve the interest or the mission of the Lord. Actually, the more we become absorbed in that mission of the Lord, then naturally we develop this mood or mentality of service, which is being referred to here. So Prabhupada would explain, that is why we call everyone else Prabhu. We are meant to develop that mentality, you are my Prabhu, if you are my Prabhu, I'm your servant. And it is not, it's a very wonderful philosophy, but it is not so easy to put into practice. But actually, that is the goal. And Srila Prabhupada would sometimes naturally make reference and point it out in some devotees and write it as well, knowing about some of their services or activities, that he would praise devotees for having developed this service attitude, developing this service attitude, very, very fundamental, very essential. So this is being referred to here. So text 45. Guru Krishna Rupa Shastrera Pramana Guru Rupe Krishna Kripa Karena Bhaktagane. According to the deliberate opinion of all revealed scriptures, the spiritual master is none different from Krishna. Lord Krishna is the form of the spiritual master. Lord Krishna, in the form of the spiritual master, delivers his devotees. Purport: the relationship of a disciple with his spiritual master is as good as his relationship with the Supreme Lord. That's quite powerful. The relationship of a disciple with his spiritual master is as good as his relationship with the Supreme Lord. We are all hankering to develop our relationship with Krishna. That is the perfection of life for all living entities, to again regain our original relationship with Krishna. So Krishna has arranged a system that we can nicely, properly, perfectly develop this relationship with Krishna by developing our relationship with his representative. And of course, Krishna has many representatives. The Diksha Guru, the Shiksha Guru, the senior Vaishnavas, they're all representatives of Krishna. A spiritual master always represents himself as the humblest servitor of the personality of Godhead. But the disciple must look upon him as the manifested representation of Godhead. Text 46. Acarya mam vijaniyan navamanyeta karhichit namartya bhujya suyeta sarva devamayo guruhu. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 17, Text 27. Translation: one should know the Acharya as myself and never disrespect him in any way. One should not envy him, thinking him an ordinary man, for he is the representative of all the demigods. Purport: this verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, spoken by Lord Krishna, is spoken by Lord Krishna when he was questioned by Uddhava regarding the four social and spiritual orders of society. Just cannot avoid it. Uddhava, he's such an elevated, advanced devotee, and he's asking Krishna about varnashram. He was specifically instructing how a brahmachari should behave under the care of a spiritual master. How many brahmacharis? Oh, one is hiding there. A spiritual master is not an enjoyer of facilities offered by his disciples. Did you hear that? There's like a constant competition very often between the disciple and the spiritual master. The disciple wants to offer more and more, and the spiritual master wants to take less and less. And sometimes it's hard to reach a compromise. A spiritual master is not an enjoyer of facilities offered by his disciples. A very important purport for you, especially. He is like a parent. Without the attentive service of his parents, a child cannot grow to manhood. Someone is trying to go to manhood now. To go from being a boy to a man. Our young bull was separated from his mother today. Ma, mommy. Yeah. So the spiritual master is like a parent. Without the attentive service of his parents, a child cannot grow to manhood. Similarly, without the care of the spiritual master, one cannot rise to the plane of transcendental service. The spiritual master is also called Acarya, or a transcendental professor of spiritual science. The Manu Samhita 2.140 explains the duties of an Acharya, describing that a bona fide spiritual master accepts charge of disciples, teaches them the Vedic knowledge with all its intricacies, and gives them their second birth. The ceremony performed to initiate a disciple into the study of spiritual science is called Upaniti, or the function that brings one nearer to the spiritual master. One who cannot be brought nearer to the spiritual master cannot have a sacred thread, and thus he is indicated to be a Shudra. The sacred thread on the body of a Brahmana, Kshatriya, or Vaishya is a symbol of initiation by the spiritual master. It is worth nothing if worn merely to boast of high parentage. The duty of the spiritual master is to initiate a disciple with the sacred thread ceremony, and after this samskara, or purificatory process, the spiritual master actually begins to teach the disciple about the Vedas. A person born a Shudra is not barred from such spiritual initiation, provided he is approved by the spiritual master, who is duly authorized to award the disciple the right to be a Brahmana, if he finds him perfectly qualified. In the Vayu Purana, an Acharya is defined as one who knows the import of all Vedic literature, explains the purpose of the Vedas, abides by their rules and regulations, and teaches his disciples to act in the same way. Only out of his immense compassion does the personality of Godhead reveal himself as the spiritual master. Therefore, in the dealings of an Acharya, there are no activities but those of transcendental loving service to the Lord. He is the Supreme Personality of Servitor Godhead. It is worthwhile to take shelter of such a steady devotee who is called Asraya Vigraha, or the manifestation or form of the Lord, of whom one must take shelter. If one poses himself as an Acharya but does not have an attitude of servitorship to the Lord, he must be considered an offender. And this offensive attitude disqualifies him from being an Acharya. The bona fide spiritual master always engages his unalloyed devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By this test, he is known to be a direct manifestation of the Lord and a genuine representative of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Such a spiritual master is known as Acharya Deva, influenced by an envious temperament and dissatisfied because of an attitude of sense gratification. Mundaners criticize a real Acharya. In fact, however, a bona fide Acharya is none different from the personality of Godhead, and therefore to envy such an Acharya is to envy the personality of Godhead himself. This will produce an effect subversive to transcendental realization. Idam tute guyatamam pravekshami anasuyave jnanam vijnanam sahitam yajgyatva mokshase shuhat. That's the first verse from the 9th canto, or 9th chapter rather, of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna explains to Arjuna, I shall reveal to you this most confidential knowledge because you're not envious. As mentioned previously, a disciple should always respect the spiritual master as a manifestation of Sri Krishna. But at the same time, one should always remember that a spiritual master is never authorized to imitate the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. False spiritual masters pose themselves as identical with Sri Krishna in every respect to exploit the sentiments of their disciples. But such impersonalists can only mislead their disciples, for their ultimate aim is to become one with the Lord. This is against the principles of the devotional cult. Last paragraph of this purport. The real Vedic philosophy is Achinta Veda Veda Tattva, which establishes everything to be simultaneously one with and different from the personality of Godhead. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami confirms that this is the real position of a bona fide spiritual master, and says that one should always think of the spiritual master in terms of his intimate relationship with Mukunda, Sri Krishna. Srila Jiva Goswami, in his Bhakti Sandarbha 213, has clearly defined that a pure devotee's observation of the spiritual master and Lord Shiva as one with the personality of Godhead exists in terms of their being very dear to the Lord, not identical with him in all respects. Yeah, this is important. Srila Jiva Goswami has clearly defined that a pure devotee's observation of the spiritual master and Lord Shiva as one with the personality of Godhead, exist in terms of their being very dear to the Lord, not identical with Him in all respects. Following in the footsteps of Srila Raghunath Das Goswami and Srila Jiva Goswami, later Acharyas like Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur have confirmed the same truth. In his prayers to the spiritual master, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur confirms that all the revealed scriptures accept the spiritual master to be identical with the personality of Godhead because he is very dear, because he is a very dear and confidential servant of the Lord. Gaudiya Vaishnavas therefore worship Srila Gurudev, the spiritual master, in the light of his being the servitor of the personality of Godhead. In all the ancient literatures of devotional service, and in the more recent songs of Srila Narottam Das Thakur, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, and other unalloyed Vaishnavas, the spiritual master is always considered either one of the confidential associates of Srimati Radharani or a manifested representation of Srila Nityananda Prabhu. Any comments or questions? Okay. Jai Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki Jai, Samasta Gaur Bhakti Vrinda ki
Jai.
Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande.
Hare
Krishna.